by chance I saw a trailer for Never Have I Ever on Netflix, and I'm really glad that I did because this is not something I'd been made aware of, and I don't really know if I would have watched it had I found out about it because it's about a high school teenager, a high school girl, and I tend to not watch TV shows where they're the protagonist because I just feel like can't really relate anymore. But I saw the trailer for this, or a clip of the first episode, and just thought, actually, yeah, kind of need to give this a go. And I'm glad that I did. It's not perfect, but there's a lot about it that I want to praise. Now, I've only seen the first episode. I am only discussing the first episode. There will be, yes, there will be spoilers in this for what happens in the first episode, so if you just want to know whether or not I think it's worth watching, yes, because it's creative. It's very unique. I've never seen a show like this. The one thing I will say is that I'm struggling to place the target audience because it deals with, put it this way, you wouldn't find it on Nickelodeon or the Disney Channel, but it's not really, with a high school casting, it's not really aimed at adults, so I don't really know where to place it. I guess there are a lot of shows like this on Netflix actually, where it's kind of a hybrid target audience of more mature high school age people, teenagers they're called, or maybe young adults or somebody looking for something that's just really funny, even if they can't relate. If that sounds like you, give it a go. Let me know what you think of the first episode. So, spoilers from now. This is about a character called Devi, or Devi. It's pronounced in the episode, and yet I still can't pronounce it properly. And what's particularly interesting is the way in which this is narrated. I'll get to that in a moment. But basically, she is a first generation Indian American going to high school. This is apparently inspired by Mindy Kaling's own experiences. She co-created this with Lang Fisher. So there's a name on there that, kind of inspires or instills a bit of confidence. And the first episode is called Pilot. It was released in 2020, and it basically introduces us to the character of Devi. And I have to say, she was quite likable. And I think in a way she's the every teenager because of why she's called the UNs. She and her two friends are referred to as the UNs, which is not a very nice nickname, but I think it's a position that a lot of people maybe feel they would be in as well. And in a way, because she's not part of the popular clique, she's not necessarily the nerdy clique. She's kind of in the middle, and it works really well. The character writing across the board, I think, works really well. But it's her first day as a sophomore, and her plan is to become one of the cool kids. And we meet her friends who are kind of being roped into this mission where this year they will become popular, and to do that they're going to get boyfriends. And this is kind of this theme of the first episode. But what's also interesting is that she's trying to shake off an old label, and I don't know why this happened. I don't know if this is something that Mindy Kaling went through and it's inspired by her own childhood, or if this is a fictitious aspect. Please tell me if you know. If it's something Kaling went through, wow. If it's something that was made up for the show, not really sure how I feel about that. But anyway, previously we learned that Devi was just randomly paralysed. She became paralysed from the waist down for no known reason. And then a year after spending a year in a wheelchair, she just could walk again. Pretty impressive. And now she's trying not only to get a boyfriend, but to shake off that label of being the girl in the wheelchair. And we get to see a lot about her. She's a very raw character. Her emotions are very much on the surface, and she has a grief counsellor who she opens up to a lot about. Those scenes are not depressing as they sound. They are actually very comedic because of Devi's personality. I find that she's very open, she's very outspoken, maybe a bit too outspoken. She's not shy and reserved, she is very forward. And I kind of liked the character, and I think that's why it worked for me. And a lot of the humour comes from her dialogue, or a lot of things that she kind of internalizes, and then just shouts out about to herself. I think it works very well. I think the costuming is great, the set designs are great. We spend a lot of time both in her house and at the school. Everything works really beautifully, everything looks really nice. The editing is particularly good as well. there's one thing that I don't really understand, and that's because I'm just watching the first episode. But it's narrated by John McEnroe, who is a name, I was aware of his name, I was aware of who he was. He's a former professional tennis player. It's kind of hinted at why he was narrating this, but not really, and I kind of hope that they go into more details about that, because it's a little bit unusual that you'd have this former tennis player narrating the story of a teenage girl. And that is a little bit jarring sometimes, because usually when something is being narrated, it's the protagonist's voiceover, maybe their internal monologue. But to have, I'm going to say an old man, that's offensive, Amy. To have an elderly man, or at least an older man, narrating this, it feels a little bit unusual. But it's also kind of easy to forget. To forget that is not the same voice, and also to remember that he's narrating her story. And it works so much more than I thought it would do, and I'm so impressed with it. And there are a lot of things in this that are quite creative and unique that work really well. One thing that I love, because I was coming towards the end of the first episode and I was thinking, will I continue with this? Will I keep watching this? I'm not sure. But then right towards the end, and I said this contains spoilers, she decides to walk up to somebody and say, will you have sex with me? And obviously this guy says yes, even though it's a very unlikely pairing. And that's basically the end of the episode. And now I'm thinking, wait, what? Is that going to happen? Will they go through with that? If they do, what's the moral of this message? What is Devi going to learn? There are a lot of questions that I have after that first episode, and I really want to find answers to them. So it's really clever in making me want to watch more. So I think I probably will. I think I will continue with the next episode at least. I'm not 100% sure if I will watch all of it, by which I mean I'm not so hooked in that I'm desperate to binge watch the entire first season. There are, I believe, 2 seasons. But so far, I am certainly very curious to see what happens, and they've done that very well. It's very well put together. Really enjoy it. If you have heard of it but have not made up your mind about watching it, definitely give it a go. I think you'll like it. If you hadn't heard of it, check it out. Let me know what you think. A lot more impressive than I thought. Very creative. As I said, struggle to kind of identify... Well, I'm struggling to pigeonhole it. But then maybe that's not a bad thing. Nothing in life should have to be pigeonholed. I enjoyed the first episode of Never Have I Ever. Looking forward to watching the next.